After a few weeks of talking nothing but video games, I decided we needed a palate cleanser of sorts, and I was going to talk about a film that meant a lot to me growing up. But on a whim, I watched something entirely different, and I realised that I wanted to talk about that instead. Because there is one thing that really bugs me with certain films, and that is a waste of potential. You'll have films like The Room where it's literally just nonsense from beginning to end, and that's fine on its own. That's why we love it. You'll have amazing films that, maybe start quite mundane, but then all of a sudden explode into something amazing. But then you will have films that start really well. They give you an idea in the first act, or certain characterizations could lead to interesting ways to have that play out. But something happens where instead of going along the path of XYZ that's amazing and brilliant and what we hoped for, they trot out the tropes and go down path ABC and just go, hey, here's the least amount of effort we could have put into this. So with that in mind, let's talk about The Taking, also known as The Taking of Deborah Logan, which was directed by Adam Robitel, who shares writing credits with Gavin Heffernan, and stars Jill Larson, Anne Ramsey and Michelle Ang. And this has Mia, a PhD thesis student, wanting to do her work on Alzheimer's. She approaches Sarah Logan to say, your mum's got Alzheimer's, can we follow you around and sort of document what's happening to her, as this awful disease gets worse. And then it spirals into she's doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and there might be possession and all that nonsense. But I enjoyed how this started because it tried to be educational. It got a lot of things wrong. You can't detect Alzheimer's through brain scan. You can get an idea, you can get an inkling, but only an autopsy confirms Alzheimer's. That's one of the things they get wrong, to be fair. But they were trying to handle it, really well, and, trying to be respectful about the subject matter. There are things that could look like possession. We have a lot of history, where people are believed to be possessed, but with a modern angle on it, and with our current understanding of psychology, they fit very neatly into certain sort of mental illness scenarios and conditions. So this film had a lot of potential. It could have, sort of gone how, a degenerative neurological condition can look like demonic possession or ghost possession or whatever. But no, it actually turns out that an awful paediatrician years ago was doing some kind of native sort of American ritual to be immortal, which required 5 victims, and he only got 4 before he was stopped and killed and buried in the Logan's backyard. Which, quick sidebar, they keep referring to him as Henri Desjardins, and that's a kind of, Hispanic kind of name. The sort of J is like an aspirated J, if you will, like an H sound. But he's from Quebec, and his name's Henri, so that would be more Desjardins, not Desjardins. And this is something that everyone in the film gets wrong, and it makes no sense, which to me makes it sound like that's director error. So I pin that one on Adam Robitel, because someone must know. If you're from Quebec, it's more likely that it's going to be a French pronunciation than a Hispanic one. But annoyance over pronunciations aside. So, they go through this plot, and it turns out that the guy who's buried in the back garden seems to be influencing Deborah. He's possessing her in a form. She keeps speaking French, and there's garbled kind of reverse speech that sounds garbled even when you reverse it. I did try on one bit. And he ends up kidnapping this cancer patient to try and complete the ritual. They seemingly deal with it. They rescue Deborah from it, and they rescue Cara, the girl. And her condition just really goes south very fast. So she can't really be in the trial. She's mentally unfit. And then we have the stinger at the end where they're interviewing Cara, who's miraculously recovered from this leukemia. And, you know, it's like, oh, isn't it amazing? You know, you've got so much life to live, you should plan for it. And she gives this weird look and grin at the camera, which is meant to, I think, say, this is how the whole immortality works. He inhabits one of them. And maybe he was helping the condition to sort of be staved off to a degree in Deborah. It had to get to a certain point so she was weak enough, maybe, but then it was fine. But as much as I wanted to love this, and the premise was great, like I say, the idea of could it be Alzheimer's, could it be possession, was a very interesting thing to me. But it just didn't work out in the end. That ending, you know, this whole race to try and chase her down, just felt very tropey. It felt very much we need to do a by the numbers kind of ending here. Oh, it's in the kid who was saved. How many times have we seen that kind of thing? And it just was such a letdown at the end. I mean, it's not super long, but there's a lot of passion here, clearly. Aside from the factual inaccuracy, you know, a lot of the stuff is well done. The interviews with, you know, Dr. Nazir and things like that, you know, they're well done. It's believable as a documentary. You can actually see the crew in the reflection of a window, which is fine. You see Mia there and the cameraman, which you'd expect. They made sure that, you know, it was set up to be realistic as found footage / documentary. But then they just do this ending that just doesn't work. But to end on a couple of positive notes, there's a couple of quick frame moments, which again is a little tropey, you could argue, but I like the way they do it. There's two of note. One that during the, what I consider the Family Feud scene, if you don't know what that means, I'll explain that right now. Or actually, I won't. The guy himself will.
Something a burglar would not want to see when he breaks into a house. Right.
Naked grandma!
So that's what I consider this scene to be, and there's a flash of like a distended jaw because they do that stupid, awful effect of her jaw distended and a terrible dummy that you can tell is a dummy. But they also have later on, when the fireplace explodes out, they have the Monacan symbol, just for like a couple of frames in there as well. So there's a lot of love, there's a lot of passion, and they clearly wanted to do something interesting with this film, but it just didn't work towards the end. It just fell flat. And I can't forgive it that. You know, the potential here was very, very wasted. The cast were doing what they could with what they had, but even that devolved into screaming in the darkness and can someone please get a working light in these scenarios? Yes, maybe explain it as, ooh, the ghost and stuff, but there's got to be some kind of lighting that would work. It's so annoying when you just have like complete long periods of darkness where it's just meant to confuse the audience. That's all it's there for. But I seem to be losing light, which is really weird because it's still early afternoon, so maybe this is telling me to wrap it up. But if you've never seen it and you can look past its flaws, at least watch the opening of it and see the potential. But that's all I want to say on The Taking / The Taking of Deborah Logan for today. So I'll be back next time with a series maybe, just to really change things up. But until then, as always, thank you for watching and take care. Seriously, where's this darkness coming from?